Thanks for downloading this episode of Cork Talk with me, Tim Atkin. A weekly conversation with some of the most famous people in the world of wine.
This podcast is brought to you in partnership with Noma Cork by Vinventions. Driven by a commitment to innovation, the new plant-based Noma Cork Green Line offers significant improvements in wine closure performance. Thanks to a rigorous oxygen ingress rate, you can decide which cork is best for your wine, whether it's for young and fresh wines or for those with ageing potential.
Alessio Planeta is the 17th generation of his family to make wine in Sicily. As you'd expect, he's a man with a passionate interest in the history of the Mediterranean's largest island. Listen to us talk about Sicily's different sub-regions, the remarkable quality of its best indigenous grapes, its 20 different civilisations, Horatio Nelson's love of Marsala, and what it's like making wine on the side of an active volcano. Hi, Alessio, and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much. I'm in Memphis now and very happy to be with you now.
Oh, it's great to be with you. I wish I were in Memphis. I mean, what a lovely place to be in Sicily. It's nice and warm, probably. It's freezing in London.
Too warm, to be honest. We start to be nervous.
Oh, really? That's climate change, is it?
Yeah.
Not good.
Definitely.
Listen, I'm dying to hear. I mean, your family is just so amazing. 17 generations of Planetas in Sicily. I mean, you're like the Antinouris of Sicily, aren't you?
No, maybe we are a little bit younger than Antinori, definitely younger, because my name is Planeta, that is a little bit Spanish sounding. So this is connected to the 17th century, when the 16th, 17th centuries, where the Spanish stopped in Sicily and dominate Sicily. And so we arrived from that area at that time. And since that time, we are based between the southwest of Sicily, that is Sambuca and Memphis, and Palermo.
And were the Planetas who came from Spain, were they wine people? Did they plant vineyards?
You know, we didn't know, to be honest. They seems to be more soldier than like many Spanish arriving at that time. And then we are in landowners since many generations. In a very special way, I think, because since the time of my grandfather, we were quite active and tried to do agriculture in Sicily. That especially not with my generation, because now Sicily, you know, is a little bit more easier. But life in Sicily 50, 70, 80 years ago was very difficult.
Yeah. I mean, did you always want to work in wine? Was there ever a chance you'd be something else, like, I don't know, a doctor or a...
No. I was since when I was a kid. I was a country, I could say, nerd. So I like very much to stay in the country, to escape from the city. And to be honest, I grew up in Palermo. That was a very sweet city when I was young. But I was a kind of person like to take my motorbike and go for the weekend in Sicily, in Memphis. Doing a long summertime in Memphis, following the agriculture side. Then when I was young, when I was a kid, was much more something like cows, wheat, and also wine, but was not too much wine, to be honest.
It was more cows and wheat, so you could have gone into wheat into dairy farming.
Yeah. And this was the very famous, very beautiful part of the lifestyle in Sicily at that time. Beautiful.
And that's why you did a master's in agriculture, didn't you? First of all, yeah.
Yes. And I studied agriculture in Sicily, in Palermo, doing some experience around the world. And then, thanks to some good masters, I became a bit more focused on wine, viticulture, and this kind of stuff.
And you went back to the family winery when in 1994. So who was there then? Was your uncle there? Was his father there?
Yeah, my uncle, my father also, of course. My father is the older brother, and then Diego, that is the second brother, was really a pioneer of Sicilian wine. I want to say also of Italian wine, because Diego was the kind of person of the 40s. That is the generation that, I think this is the generation that made Italy, as the Americans say, great again. So, doing something.
Listen, I want to talk a bit more about Diego in a second, but just tell us what you did at the start. What did they make you do? Did they make you work in the winery? Were you in the vineyards?
Well, at the beginning, I live in the country. I finished my study, and I moved in the country, following everything what's going to happen. Just to give you an idea, when I start, there was no telephone in the country. So sometimes you need to go to the village 2 times, 3 times a day to make a phone call, to talk with the office, with sales, with whatever. And so it was a lovely old-style life. And we had vineyards, of course. We were members of cooperative. We didn't make our own wine, but I immediately started to do some personal experience doing harvest one in Burgundy, and then a couple and some producers in Sicily. And start to do the experimental part of Planeta, because Planeta was born in 95, but there was a lot of trial before, a lot of experiment and any kind of experience before starting Planeta.
And you mentioned Diego, who was your uncle, who sadly died in 2020, but one of the great figures, really, of not just Sicilian wine, but Italian wine. I mean, amazing achievements in terms of what he got growers to plant, the great varieties he brought in. What influence did he have on you, do you think?
But Diego, for me, was a master in 2 directions. First direction was Diego was really a great lover of Sicily, of history of Sicily, of what means do agriculture in Sicily, and it really transferred me all this, if I can say, atmosphere, culture, really heritage of what was traditional Sicily. Is something beautiful. In my family, there are many storytellers. Diego was a great storyteller. You can spend hours listening story about hunters, about how to graft vineyards, how to very special Sicilian man. And this was the first part. The second part, Diego was a man living with really speaking 4 languages fluently, traveling around the world, having relationship with people from for the CEO of a great importer in England, like Mr. Raymond Ardone, just to say a name, until the last person, wine lovers in Australia, maybe. So Diego was this kind of man that when we start, the distance between Sicily and Sicilian wine and the market was like today from the Earth to Mars. It was really, really hard, really hard.
And he changed that. As you said, he mentioned Raymond Ardone, who was at Inotria, and he made connections with people overseas.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, he was an amazing character, wasn't he? I mean, I only met him a couple of times, but he was always good fun, right? As well. Yeah.
This was the Italians that were founders of the renaissance of Italian wine in some way around the world.
I mean, another one of your great mentors was Carlo Corino, wasn't it, from Piemonte, who'd worked in Australia, which is very unusual for an Italian in those days. How did he influence your winemaking style?
Carlo was a special person. My connection with Carlo was thanks to Diego, because in the 80s, Diego was president of Sette Soli, what still is a big cooperative in the area. And Diego had at that time a winemaker from Piemonte since 35 years. And one day this winemaker said, okay, I'm tired of Sicily. I want to go back to my truffle in Alba. And so Diego need to find a new winemaker. And he heard the story about this man, Corino. Corino was special because it was the father was the chief of the wine school of Alba. So the chief of maybe most of the wine producers, they were focused they were studying in Piemonte with him. And the same school of his schoolmate were Angelo Gaia, Bruno Ciaretto, this kind of person. And Corinne was the first, the best of school. And he had a very strange career because when he finished his study, he went first to Ethiopia, where Italians used to make wines. And second, he was to Australia. He was in Maggi, that was, on the other side of Australia, near Sydney. And from the 70s to 89, he was winemaker there. But after 25 years around the world, he was perfectly from Piemonte. So speaking strict the dialect from Piemonte, eating bagna cauda and a lot of garlic, but he was the perfect person for us because he had the culture of Italian Piemonte winemakers, but the open mind of people that work in Australia in the 70s, where Australia was the lab of wine in the world, maybe.
Yeah. Very interesting. I want to talk to you a little bit about the history of Sicily, because I know you're very interested in it, and Diego was too. So many races, nationalities have had an influence on the place. I mean, the list is amazing. Sicilians, from where it takes its name, Phoenicians, the Greeks, the Romans, the Normans, the Germans, the Spaniards. Have I left anybody out? The English? I don't know. Are we doing anything to do with it?
Yeah. Once I find a book where Diego writes that Sicily is the wine of the 20 civilisations. So we have 20 different that influence a little bit, a lot of agriculture, food, and also wine. Just to give you a simple example, in the southwest of Sicily, in Pantelleria, they use Zibibbo, that is a very typical Arabian name from Cape Zibib.
Which is Muscat, is it?
Exactly. This is Muscat, but it came from Tunisia, from Cape Zibib. On the other side, we use Grecanico, that definitely came from Greece. And any civilization really give a lot of influence to the wine, arriving to, I don't know, many people say that the Marsala was in some way invented by British that were producing in Marsala wine similar to what they used to buy from Spain. And so there is a mix of this. That is a richness of Sicilian wine, but also make our life of wine producer much more exciting. Because
it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, Sicily is almost like a continent. I mean, do you feel Italian or do you feel Sicilian? I mean, Palermo is closer to Tunis than it is to Naples, isn't it? I mean, I often think that Sicily has lots in common with North Africa and Andalusia in Spain, really, more than it does with Milan or somewhere in the north. Yeah.
Just to I give you an answer. When we go from Messina to Reggio Calabria, we used to say we go to Italy. So we are traveling. Where are you going? I'm going to Italy. So to be Sicilian is a state of mind. It's something like people from the island. We consider Italian, but in a certain way.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, Sicily's had some famous wines in the past, things like Populatum in Roman times and Marsala, you've mentioned, which was drunk by Lord Nelson, Horatio Nelson. I mean, what happened? When did the quality decline set in?
First of all, let me say that Lord Nelson was Duke of Bronte. Because the Bourbons give him the title to be Duke of Bronte. Bronte is a village on the Etna, with a very famous pistache village. He had a beautiful property there, and not him, because he never see the property, but the new generation. They have also a beautiful vineyard with a fantastic story to be down the water in the Etna. What's happened in Sicily was something that happens in different time in many different areas. So in Sicily, everything happens usually late. A few decades late, usually. Luckily, we can say. And also phylloxera arrives late. So Sicily had a window of time from the 60 to 80, 90, something like this, where there was only in Sicily vineyards and not in the rest of Italy. So Sicilians were exporting a lot of wine everywhere, and making Sicily was full of vineyards. Today, Sicily is around 100,000 hectares of vineyards. In the end of 19th century, it was 3 times more. So Sicily was covered of vineyards, selling wine, but not a concept of quality wine like today, but a concept of everyday wine, because, the collapse of production in, we can say in France, rest of Italy, whatever, they need wine for every day. Then what's happened in Sicily was simply that between the phylloxera arrives a little bit later, slowly they go back to production. Between the 2 wars, there was a collapse of production like in many other places. And then after in the 60s, there was time where there was an European politics to help people to produce, because there were too much emigration from the country to the big city. And so they give you money to produce agriculture like wine and some other product, maybe not exactly for the market. And so Sicily started to produce too much wine, producing wine for producing bulk wines, maybe not for the market, maybe not for the best quality wine. And so Sicily in the 80s, when we start Planeta, was in bottling 2% of the production.
2%?
2%, yeah.
Wow.
Tell
us a bit more about the terroir of Sicily. As you've said, it's like 100,000 hectares or something. And I often think of it as divided into 4 areas: so east, central, west, and then the islands, which are Pantelleria and Favignana. Do you see it that way, or do you think that's too simplistic?
I could never say something like this to you.
You can.
Once I read a book that said that Sicily is the perfect lab for the geologist. Because in Sicily, for the origin of Sicily, there are so many different terroirs. You have the north of Sicily is done by mountains. They are in Italy you have Apennini in the center of Italy, then Tar for the pressure of Africa, and you have the north of Sicily are done by Apennini. Then you have a few volcanic area, but not like, all the world talk about volcanic soils. No, this is a little bit different because these are active volcanoes areas. So where the volcanoes are weekly active.
This is Etna, right?
Yes, this is Etna, but it's not only Etna. You have Etna, you have all the Aeoli Island that are all volcanoes. Then you have on the south west of Sicily, Pantelleria, that is also volcanic, and a couple of volcano under the water in front of, for example, of Memphis, where we are. The soils of Sicily, the rest of soils of Sicily, you have the clay soils on the west, sandy calcareous soils on the southeast. So it's really a mix of different conditions that is connected also to a lot of different weather conditions, because one of the big mistakes about Sicily is the weather. People think that Sicily is like a desert, warm, and like
they think it's North Africa, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But then Sicily is a garden. Still today, even with the weather a bit more when Federico II arrives to the Holy Land, he said, you're right, that why they call this place Holy Land. And they've never seen my Sicily full of citrus, full of wheat, full of any kind of trees and flowers.
Much nicer, right? And altitude, you go from sea level to what? What are the highest vineyards on Etna? 1,100 meters?
Our vineyards arrives at 900 meters. Some producer arrives at 1,000. Some people a bit more. So it was the highest viticulture in the world, not today because the new world is much higher, but was one of the highest viticulture in the world. And the harvest started the first days of August and finished the end of October. So 3 months of harvest in a small island at the end, because it's not so big. Is a good picture of the diversity.
That's a long time, isn't it? It's sometimes called the Isola del Vino, the island of wine. How many different grape varieties do you have, and how many of those are indigenous to Sicily? They're only grown there.
This is another interesting story about Sicily, connected to the diversity of different civilizations. Each of them brings some variety. Position of Sicily was in the center of the journey of viticulture because Mediterranean is the center. So we used to say that in Sicily we have 20 native grapes that 4 of them grows in all the island that are Catarratto, Grillo, Nero d'Avola. These 3 grows in all the island. The rest grows locally. For example, Caricante grows only on the Etna, or Zibibbo only in Pantelleria. Then we have 50 ancient variety. That is a beautiful work of research that we Sicilian have done 20 years ago, going around all the viticulturists, asking them if they have some different grapes, taking the grapes, doing the DNA analysis to be sure that we're differently, and replanting these grapes. These are 50. So is a bank of biodiversity that is beautiful. Then you have all the French grapes that arrives much, since many times people sometimes connect French grapes in Sicily to, for example, to Planeta in the 80s, but it's completely not true. The oldest Bordeaux blend that is proved by the story that they won a medal in the expo in Berlin, London, Paris, was done in the Etna by the Castello di Solicchiata, that had a beautiful property that we know very well because we distribute. That is one of the most unbelievable place in the wine I've seen in my life.
And when was that?
Is in Castello Solicchiata.
When was the date? When did it win the prize?
1860. 1860. Yeah.
1860.
Yes.
There was already French grape varieties.
Yes.
How interesting. So you've got 20 grape varieties, 50, ancient grape varieties. How many French grape varieties? Now the 10, 15, 20?
Yes.
So you've got nearly 100 grapes, yeah?
And just to finish, a few Italians, means not Sicilian, not French.
So those would be things like what? Sangiovese or something like that?
Mostly, Sangiovese and Barbera was in the 80s because the winemakers was mostly from that part of Italy. Yeah. Now you had more, a little bit of Pinot Grigio, a little bit of Fiano, for example, that we use we love very much Fiano.
And your Fiano is very good.
Yeah, Fiano is great. And these are some Vermentino, because some producers with a connection with the island, they use Vermentino. These are the most...
would you say the 2 best grapes are Caricante and Grillo or not? White grapes, we're talking white first. White, yeah.
Yes. Caricante is a great grape connected to Etna. If you move from Etna, is like like a rugby player in a football field. It doesn't work. But there is beautiful. Grillo is much more versatile and is a grape with a great potential, a huge potential.
Because historically, the white grapes were Catarratto. You mentioned Trebbiano, which is grown all over Italy. Insolia, those are quite neutral grapes, aren't they? Really?
Well,
Catarratto less so. Yeah.
Catarratto is a grape with personality. You need to grow a little bit in altitude. After 300 meters can give you great wines. Trebbiano was not Sicilian, was from Tuscany, and Sicily produced too much and was a little bit natural, as you said, definitely less interesting in our weather condition. But these 2 that you mentioned with Grecanico are the guys, the white.
And the reds, the most planted and the most famous is probably Nero d'Avola, but you've got Frappato, you've got Nerello Mascalese, which is again tends to be an Etna grape, doesn't it? With Nero Cappuccio. Those are 3 of my favourite varieties from Sicily. Are they yours as well?
Yes. Definitely. Nero d'Avola is magic. You can do top wine in a different style. You can use for making one of the most interesting potential in rosé wine with acidity, flavors, and whatever. And I grew some years ago. I went around the world doing a testing called Exploring Nero d'Avola, showing people our Nero d'Avola done in Menfi, Vittoria, Noto, and Capomilazzo. So 4 areas of Sicily, completely different and really very adaptive. And Frappato is the most aromatic red grapes that I know. And Nerello Mascalese day after day is showing as a great red wine for classic wine, for aging with elegance, with balance. Interesting.
And do we think that it's that Nerone Mascalese is a native grape, or I mean, wasn't the possibility of a connection with Tuscany or something like that?
No, yeah. Well, it's a kind of connection that is more on the DNA, but it's definitely Sicilian and from Etna. I've never seen something similar around the wine world. When you do DNA analysis, they reconnect roots. Most of the roots are from Sangiovese, because Sangiovese was the origin of some level of viticulture. It's connected to some variety from Calabria, but then it's completely different and it's very Sicilian.
And what about the French grapes? Let's not talk about the other Italian grapes from the continent of Italy. Let's talk about the French grapes. Which grapes have the most potential? Because your Chardonnay is amazing, and there's always been a very successful Chardonnay.
No, there is some part of Sicily that for me are paradise for French grapes. I'm talking about some system of hills that we have here, for example, in Memphis, from the sea level until 400 meters, surrounded by forest, with some decent quantity of rain, where these French grapes give wine with personality, with potential. Super interesting. And some area, some terroir of Sicily work very well with some French grapes. Chardonnay for us, it was and still is an iconic wine from our Marsala. We plant in our best vineyards, surrounded by a lake, by a forest. On the red side, Franc more than for sure than Sauvignon, and Syrah more than Merlot. They grow very well in some area, and I say the wine world now is, if you sometimes when you plant a French grape in Sicily, they feel you guilty, like if you kill someone. This is not what I think. I think that in Sicily, I'm very interested to do the best in each terroir. Or there are some places that Nero d'Avola is the best. I don't have any reason to plant something different. Some other places are different, and the French grapes give you great potential.
I mean, you've got 6 different wineries, haven't you, in Sicily, and 5 different sub-regions. Yeah. Do you apply the same philosophy in the vineyard in all of them, or do you work differently?
No. The only thing is common in all our places here is the way we manage vineyards in terms of sustainability. So we are organics everywhere. We have one new product in biodynamic, and the rest is always different. We have different people speaking different language, Sicilian dialect, because what we learned by our mistakes when we start, we was born in Memphis since generation. First project outside of Memphis was Victoria in 97, and when we go there in 97, we a little bit do the same we done in Memphis, and this we understand that every place is different. Victoria, for example, is red sandy soils. Noto is white calcareous soils, and of course Etna volcanic. So we play different music, definitely different music, having a winery dedicated, people dedicated, and approach dedicated. Looking much more to what is going around the place than not in the Planeta place on the other side. So if you play the music of Cerasuolo, you have to see what's happened there and do.
And how far away is the furthest winery from Memphis where you are?
Memphis Victoria is 160 kilometers. Okay. That with the Sicilian roads is a long drive.
That's 2 days.
And Noto is 80. Sicily is like a triangle of 270, 300, 240 kilometers.
Yeah. And you also you believe in biodiversity, don't you? I mean, your olive oil is amazing, obviously, but what else do you have? You have almonds, don't you, as well?
Yeah. Since many times we really work hardly to not being viticulturist. We kill the viticulturist inside of us, and now we are agriculture people. We are back to do different plants, because even if we grow 400 hectares of vineyard, that is a big surface. We have always diversity in our place. That of course olive oil in Memphis, that is a big project for us. Almond in Noto. carobs in Vittoria, chestnut in Etna, and wheat and pastry in many places. So to not be only vineyards is really a different way of doing agriculture.
And that's where you started. You started as an agriculturist, interested in other things, right?
Exactly. And now we are back to the cows. We also have now 7 cows that are lovely.
And what are you using them for? For manure, or
we are. I said you that we have one of the projects in New of Planeta is a new project is done in Sambuca. It's a joint venture with a French family. Because after exploring all Sicily, we said, okay, what's new? Because we as Planeta like to do every time new things because we are Sicilian curious people, and so we try to find some people that believe in Sicily like we do and can also the idea of investing in Sicily. That was a land where people usually escape from, not invest money. And we convinced this French people to do a project together, and that is in biodynamic. Is 100 hectares of land with 17 hectares of vineyards. The rest is forest, wheat, chickpeas, fig, bees.
Honey, from bees.
And also cows, because you use cows for preparing a product for the biodynamics. Because you every morning wake up and go to see what the cows do, and you also see the vineyards, the whatever. So it's a different approach to viticulture that is much more interesting.
Tell me a little bit about the image that Sicily has. I mean, as you said, it was a place people used to escape from rather than, they'd go to Rome or they'd go to Naples or whatever, rather than stay there. And obviously, historically, there's been stuff about the mafia, and not true stories, but fictional ones as well, with The Godfather. What's the image now, do you think?
Sicily is living really wonderful moment. Thanks to, first of all, of course, in the 90s, many judges and many people from the government died to fight mafia, and there were special laws, and the mafia people are all in the jail. And step by step, Sicily is a normal country because it was not normal before. And the potential of Sicily now is under the radar of many people. There were. Something in the last months, you have on the most important TV channel the new Leopard, a beautiful TV series about the family Florio.
About Lampedusa, yeah?
Yes, exactly. On HBO, there was the White Lotus based in Sicily. So Sicily is full of tourists from all over the world with a double of the flight coming. And as you know, because Sicily, you can stay weeks in Sicily, changing village every day and be surprised by the beauty, by the history, by the whatever. And this is the most important thing for selling wine, because people come here and drink your wine, because of course, when you go to a Sicilian restaurant, you drink Sicilian wine. And then when you go back to your country, sometimes, not every day, unfortunately, you drink Sicilian wine.
So you sell the place in a way, yeah?
Yeah, exactly. And there was a big changing in Sicily in the last years. A lot of beautiful hotels, new hotels. Yeah.
It sounds great.
For example.
Just tell me how you're coping with climate change. Are we going to see more vineyards at altitude? Are more people going to go up onto Etna?
Yes. Well, not Etna is a different story because, of course, yes, Etna. But also in Memphis, for example, in the last 25 years, we moved the vineyards from close to the sea to the hills, from maybe most close to the sea level to 400 meters. So it's a big changing.
You'd already done that, right?
Yeah. Since many years. And then vineyards are quite resilient. We have seen also in the last years we had a very extreme condition. That doesn't mean definitely. I remember in the 90s some very, very dry years. What I see now is the weather is much more violent. You can have 1 week very hot, and you can have rain. And this is something that you have to consider and in your all viticulture choice and decision. And to go in this kind of soils, to go near the forest, is exactly what we are doing in the last years. At the end, we are having more rain than in the past. That is not so bad for Sicily, but we are what we do is that is very important. We do our we understand that people like us have to do agriculture in a clean and green and sustainable way, because every of us should do something.
Because you're very involved in the generic side, aren't you, of Sicilian wine, promoting Sicily as a place and its wines. I just, what are your plans as a group of producers for the future? Are you going to talk about places, about grape varieties, about food and wine, about history, or a bit of everything? What are you going to focus on?
No, well, I think Sicily today must be focused on increasing the image of Sicilian wine around the world, because sometimes I think Veronelli, that was the first Italian wine writers, used to say that Sicily he said, silver wines with golden grapes. That was a very kind way to say that we were not focused on quality in a beautiful place. The effort of Sicilian today is to, first of all, say the story about the different area of Sicily, because really, to talk about Sicilian wine is not so easy, because what are Sicilian wine? Pantelleria or Etna? Nero d'Avo or Grillo? And to transfer to the wine world this diversity is a long-term job. It's not in one day. Today, people have a very clear idea of Etna. Etna was a bomb, really, because in 20 years from scratch, and they were making wine since time of Polifemo and Odyssey. But in 20 years, the perception of wine from Etna now is a new fine wine region. So people talk about Etna as a classic.
They do,
as a classic. And 20 years ago was, I don't know, Menfi maybe, where more people visiting Menfi in the wine world than Etna. And so there was a big changing that is thanks to many reasons. One of the reasons for sure is that Etna is something that remains in your memory for always. When you go there, it makes the difference. The focus for me is to really transfer this story to the market. There's a story of different variety, terroir, and this is its
beauty. I mean, do you like to cook? I just wonder how you get away from wine, because you have a very busy life, don't you?
Oh yeah. But I like to cook very much, and as many in the family, especially the female part of the. But also, for example, I have one of my son that work with me every day is cook very well. So many times when we have guests, we cook for them, because it's the best way to socialize, wine and especially we have a glorious dinner with we have a French winemaker that is a friend also, called Florent Dumont. Sometimes he come to visit, 5-6 times a year. And one time he brings some food from France and we cook for him. And sometimes we cook for him Sicilian wine food. And Sicily is quite interesting, because you used to go for
even a Frenchman thinks that, right?
Yeah.
And I'm pleased to hear that the 18th generation is already in the business, right?
Yes. Slowly we start, and of course this is also there is the beautiful word from French word about the durable agriculture, and to be a family winery means also is connect yourself to do something that should be better for the next generation. I seen when we started with my uncle, my generation of my father, my uncle. Really, they've done a miracle to keep the property as it is. We make it bigger, but they have a easier life comparing to what my grandfather had in Sicily, and I had for sure.
Yeah. Well, I'm delighted. What a family winery you've got, making some amazing wines, and it's so great, as you said, that it's still in your hands, the future of the winery. Thank you, Alessio, for sharing so much information about Sicily. God, I learned so much. I mean, really, really interesting stuff. Thank you very much, and keep making those amazing wines.
Grazie, and see you in Sicily.
You bet. What a fascinating and engaging chat. Sicily really does owe the Planetas a debt of gratitude. Next week on Cork Talk, my guest is Sean Willard, who engineers wine lists and menus for a living. Join me then. Thanks for listening to Cork Talk. If you want to read more reports, articles and tasting notes by me, go to my website, timatkin.com. You can also follow me on Twitter, @TimAtkin, and on Instagram, @TimAtkinMW. See you next week.